I want to welcome you to Dream Chasers Radio with me, your host, Yaya Diamond. What's up, peoples? How you doing? It is a great day, and I have an author on the show. I am telling you, authors are amazing. If you've ever written a book, you know what I'm talking about. It takes brain power, imagination, details. It's like you have to go all the way back. And if you're doing like different subjects, education or, politics or food, I like food. Food is good. But today we're going to be talking about education. But we have an amazing guest on our show. He lives all the way on the other side of the world. I love it, across the seas. He lives in England. And I want to welcome Mr. Alan Shearer. Welcome to the show.
Well, I'm delighted to be here. I've got a special love affair with America. So anytime I find my way, even so by these means to America, I'm absolutely thrilled.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I love everything Europe. Okay. And London is one of my favorite places to go. Love the outskirts in Manchester. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Love it. Love it. Love it. And so I want to go back a little bit because we were talking about you and we were talking about how you got into where you are today. But how did you know you were going to become a writer? And did you know?
I did not know at all. This was a huge surprise to me in my life, in my working life, in my school days. If anybody, my teachers thought I'd end up writing a book, they would have been amazed because this was not my strength at all. Even my wife, she really still gets surprised that I should do this and that I should turn it into a play and then put it on the stage was even more startling. But you see, it all happened by accident, as is the rest of my life. Nothing in my life went according to plan, not a thing. And this was one little bit of it. So, I'll begin wherever you want me to begin.
Well, let's begin at the moment that everything changed for you and you became that person that you never thought you would become.
All right. Well, let me try and explain.
Okay.
I started out as a lawyer, but didn't work very much. I tried to be a bit of a politician. That didn't work very much. And then, much to my surprise, I ended up in business and had a rip-roaring success and retired at the age of 60, thinking that I would have a quiet life. Only it did not turn out that way. And it turned out that way again, as I rather say to you, unexpectedly, because I belong to the Rotary Club of Sunderland. A lot of people in America know all about Rotary. And you would not think that that would have a dramatic effect on my life. Well, it did, and still does to this day. Let me explain. In the Sunderland Rotary Club, I met a man called Fredwin Haynes. Sadly, he's no longer alive. And he was the head teacher of a special school in Sunderland. This school was for physically disabled kids with a learning difficulty. And he invited me, first of all, to be the governor and then chair of governors of that school. Mm-hmm. Now, I knew nothing at all about special educational needs at this time. It was a total revelation to me. And this school was an absolutely wonderful school. I mean, the teachers and carers were dedicated people. There were physios, nurses, there was a hydrotherapy pool. The kids, it was all-age school, and the older kids were role models for the younger ones. There were presentation evenings, which were wonderful because everybody seemed to be winning something. And the whole thing was just very, very lovely to be involved with, and I was delighted to be there. I just give you one illustration of the sort of school that was there. I have a memory still of one boy who was sitting in a wheelchair, which he controlled with a wand attached to his forehead. And he also controlled a computer with a wand. So, that was a liberation for him. And that's a sort of indication. There were kids that had been in mainstream. There was one, I remember, a girl who had language difficulties, and she'd been bullied in mainstream schools, and she came to that school. There's another one who was a friend of mine to this day called Ashley Ritchie. Now, Ashley, when I knew her, I mean, she was actually a fantastic girl. But I mean, just to show you, on these presentation evenings, she hit the head teacher over her head with a rolled up newspaper as part of the fun of the evening.
My gosh.
I was recently at her wedding. And now, I mean, she literally, she was married to a lovely guy. She went to learn how to dance with her husband in a wheelchair. And now she's got 2 little puppy dogs, and they've adopted a little boy. I mean, this has grown out of this school. So you can begin to see how a school like that takes me over.
Yes.
Now it really did take me over without my having to do very much. Now, what happened next was the head teacher retired. Now, the flavor of the times was to close schools like that down and say that these kids had a right to go to mainstream schools. And I can describe to you what happened, because the director of education came along to a meeting of the parents, and I was there that evening, and he said, "I've got good news for you. We're going to close you down, and all you kids are going to go to mainstream. We've got a choice of how you get there, but you will get there one way or the other."
Oh my
And,
gosh.
and I was sitting next to a parent governor, and I said to her, "Look, ask for a vote." Well, she asked for a vote, and of course, not one single hand went up in favor of that, and didn't stop the local authority um, pressing on, because the flavor of the times is inclusion. And there was then a big battle, because the local authority still wanted to close the school. I urged the parents not to get a petition, but to get reasoned arguments against closure. And they got over 10,000 reasoned arguments against closure. And the minister then actually, the parents lobbied London. The minister didn't agree, and they kept the school alive. But it didn't stop the local authority trying to close the school down. And so there was a campaign. Now, this profoundly upset me, as you can understand.
Yeah.
And the fact is that the parents actually won the war, but lost, won the battle, but lost the war. Because if you go to the school today, it's still there. If they hadn't fought the battle, it might have been a building site or a housing estate. But it's no longer a school for physically disabled kids. Those kids are now in mainstream. Most likely they're being bullied. They most likely haven't got they've got people who are helping them as best they can, but it won't be quite the same. And you see, now you begin to see why I got a bit upset by all of this. And I decided the only way that I could really get it out of my system, because it had really taken me over, was to write a play. And actually, believe it or not, I was in America at the time. And originally I thought, well, it might be a play to be read. And it was somebody said, well, yeah, well, write it, go and write it. So I wrote this play. And then by a series of accidents, I met a director of a little theatre in London. He said, let's have a rehearsed reading of it. You have to pay for it, but have a rehearsed. So I had a rehearsed reading. And the fact is that it went out quite well. These are 2 or 3 actors, professional, who put it on, taking many parts. And I had a dramaturge, never come across the word dramaturge before, and she knocked the play into shape for me. And at that time, the Times Educational Supplement, which is the leading newspaper of the profession, gave it a good write-up. But then a number of things happened. First thing is that they realized what the play was all about, and it was going against the tide of opinion at the Times. So they were no longer quite so keen on promoting it. And anyway, I then get an invitation from the director to put the play on properly with full actors, and I thought it'd be a great idea to have kids with special needs performing in the play. And I also had a teacher I knew up in the north from Barbara Priestman's school, that was a school up north. I got her to come down for the opening night. But the fact is that it was against the flow of the time. So it really didn't get a good reception. The Stage magazine used vitriol in the review of it. It was terrible. But I had one bit of very good fortune. I haven't talked about my wife, who is very much a part of my life and helped to make my life what it is. And she had a very good friend whom you will know of. And that friend is Miriam Margulies, who you will see on the stage. Now, she actually shared a flat with Miriam in her younger days. And Miriam, by sheer chance, was in London for both the rehearsed reading and for the full play. And she gave it a really good review. And one way or another, we kept the show on the road. So this really got my interest going, as you can tell, in education in a big way. But as time has gone by, what I realized is that it actually throws up a lot of other issues as well that goes way beyond special educational needs. And I'll try and explain. One of them is really this one. I was actually trained in law, and so I'm quite interested in human rights.
That's right.
Now you see, here you've got a conundrum. You've got a conundrum because the kids had a right given by Parliament to go to mainstream education, and that right was being given to them by the local authority. But the parents also had a right to a school of their own choice if the kids were with special educational needs. So here you had a clash of two human rights. Now, what do you do when you get a clash? Well, the answer is you don't apply fair play to this, because if you applied fair play, you'd keep that school going because of how I described it to you. They just pressed on regardless because they were in power. So that was one lesson that I learned. But there was another lesson I learned, which in my view went far, far beyond that. And that is that here these kids, they were getting a good education, a really good, and they were enjoying themselves. They haven't mentioned the steel drum band. I mean, the steel drum band that was in demand, and the parents ferried them around. So they weren't cocooned in their own little cabin. They were getting around all the time. They even played before Tony Blair and his constituency nearby in Sedgefield. They played nationally in competitions. This was the sort of thing that was going on. Now, these kids were getting an education for life. I mean, I remember seeing a teacher teaching the kids how to bake tarts. Now, learning how to cook is something which would help an awful lot of people and should be given to people if you're not focusing on going to university all the time. If you've got space for it, you should learn to cook. I learned to cook. I'm just in my retirement. What I did when I learned metalwork at school, well, I didn't really, cooking would have been much more help to me if I'd been brought into, but I wasn't. I was not. But you see what I'm getting at, that in fact, that if you're going to go to university, you're going to go on one sort of curriculum.
Right.
If you're not going to university, maybe you have a totally different one. You focusing on the art side, focusing on the leisure side of your activities, focusing on all sorts of subjects that you wouldn't necessarily have time for. So suddenly it dawned upon me that here we're dealing with a situation which has much wider implications. The implication is, we see in the UK, you've got a national curriculum. Well, you see, that focuses on getting to university. And of course, half the kids aren't going to get to university. So I do wonder whether the curriculum they're being fed is right for them, whether there could be a better curriculum for them. You see where I'm coming from. And you see, I'll tell you something else, that what you read about today is a lot of kids are put on Ritalin. Now, I've no doubt that Ritalin is a very proper medication to give to some kids, but is it right for so many to be on Ritalin, or is this just an improvisation to deal with kids? Remember what Ritalin is dealing with: attention deficit hyperactivity. Well, it may be the kids are just bored with the subject that they're on, and they're just throwing a bit of a tantrum. I mean, and then just to feed them Ritalin is not necessarily the right answer.
Right.
What I'm really saying is that what I discovered goes way beyond what I've found. And to say the essence of what I've written now my autobiography, which tries to make this point that life is a learning experience. I've got this quote that makes me sound more literate than I am, from T.Y. that you end up where you started from and see it for the first time. Well, I think that some people end up where they started from and see it as they saw it for the first time. They don't, but I necessarily have changed my perceptions of things. I used to think the purpose of education was equality of education, equality of opportunity to go to a university. Well, that's not it. You're going to fail. There's many more objectives. And when I got into my working life, which was not a legal one, it was a different one entirely, I discovered that people were succeeding in that life without a degree. And the suggestion that you've got to get a degree in order to succeed is quite wrong. There
Yeah.
are many, many ways that you can succeed in life. And really what I realize is that a lot of things have got to be rethought out in this 21st century to get it right. It's a very difficult time we're living through now, heaven knows. I'm extraordinarily sorry for the people who are having to come through it. I mean, we had our problems, they've got theirs, and I'm very sorry. But why I write is to try to give some clues as to where to go from here, because it's not necessarily where they were in the last century. We need some new thoughts, and I hope that I can provoke them. I hope that gives you a clue as to why.
It does. Just
And,
just a little clue. Just
here's the tiny one.
but no, definitely. I understand where you're coming from. I mean, children learn at different paces, especially when they have a difficulty or they have a challenge. And, they need to have those special needs met. And going to a regular school is just not going to cut it. And unfortunately, they got pushed back into a school that they don't need to be in. Literally, I think they were growing and becoming how would I say, a productive member of society, if I should say it like that, where they were learning to actually work with what they had. Now, they're probably not going to do that. It's kind of like a cookie cutter kind of education system that we all have all around the world. Basic information that's been given that just doesn't suit everyone. And unfortunately, that's,
Can I just read something out to you? Which I
yeah,
think
definitely. I would love that.
You see, I've got this book, which is the Death of a Nightingale book. Here.
Yes, please. Yeah.
And I got this quotation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is not from a socialist. This, in the UK, we've got people who are what are called Lib Dems. It's a sort of a combination of a liberal and a socialist.
Okay.
And what this guy said, called Phil Wills, and he was the former Liberal Democratic spokesman for education in the Commons
Mm-hmm.
in 2001. Working in Chapeltown in the late 1960s convinced me that unless we could educate the whole community together, wherever they came from, and whatever their needs and disabilities, frankly, we would breed dysfunctional communities. It is a point of principle to me and my colleagues that inclusive education goes to the heart of the educational system. Now, that is a generalization. And you shouldn't address education like that, because you've got to look at the individual needs of kids.
Yes.
You haven't got to social engineer, which is really what this is trying to do.
Exactly.
And I've got another quote from an academic. It's important to be clear, therefore, that an analysis of costs and outcomes cannot properly be used to determine the question of rights. Well, that's a nonsense. You've got to look at costs and outcomes before you determine rights. Otherwise, the rights are an absolute nonsense. They're a charade. The whole thing is a charade. So I think, as I say, unfortunately, I think the present generation have got to look very, very hard at the people who are teaching them, because unfortunately, I think some of the people are teaching them are simply teaching them the error of their ways. And that is not a good idea. So, I mean, there's a guy called Ken Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I do urge you to just zoom in on him or Google him or whatever it is. Ken Robinson, he sadly died, but he said, well, I'm outside education. He was in it. He actually left the UK and came to America, and he had an audience there. Now, I go along with what he says. He says that a lot of kids, when they're born, they're naturally creative.
Yeah.
And they're creative. And the educational system knocks the creativity out of them.
Yes, it does.
And he uses an example, which I was a startling example. There's a place in America, Dead Valley, I think it's called, where it's so hot that nothing grows. And a few years ago, apparently, there was a very, very heavy rain. And the following year, the place was full of flowers. Now, what he says is that this is life. You think that the kids have got nothing to offer. They've got a lot to offer, but you've got to bring it out of them. You've got to provide a system that encourages people to grow and be creative and give them themselves and be of their best. You see, I'm very conscious of the fact that this word equality causes a lot of trouble. Equality is a mischief word because we're not all equal, we're different.
Yes.
And this is where the problem comes. You see, we're equal only sometimes. Some people think we're equal always, but we're not. We're equal only sometimes. We're different always. And this is the key to education, is to respect the differences.
Yes.
And people are so say, oh, we've got to have parity of esteem. What a load of bullshit, parity of esteem. I mean, you see, again, I mean, I watch these things, and you have this lovely lady, Michelle Obama.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Michelle Obama came over to the UK and she spoke to a school in England, a girls' school as it happens. I keep thinking that boys have got to look out because people like Michelle Obama, because she said to this girls' school, be the best you can be. And that's really what it's all about.
Yeah.
That's what you want people to be, is be the best they can be. And
Yeah.
I mean, I just tried to think around where I come from in all of this. And I think I could sum it up in almost in a sentence. Who do I really admire?
Who?
Right?
Right.
Nice question. Who do I really, really, really admire? Who it really, really made a success of her life in a big way?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll tell you who. Helen Keller. Helen Keller and the girl who helped her, blind and deaf. And she triumphed dramatically over that. Zoom in on her and see what a great life she led. Helen Keller. So I rate Helen Keller much, much more than I rate George Soros. Right?
Yeah. I hear you.
You'll see what I'm getting at.
Yes,
because
definitely.
You see, I'll just come round to this, if you like. My autobiography, although it's critical of many things, it also has a positive side to it. The book, My England, will have when it comes out, it has a positive side. Because I retired at 60. I could have been much wealthier, but I decided I wanted a quiet life, which I never got. But that's by the way. But what I did do, this is with my wife, I found the secret is the secret of life for most people, and I'm not speaking alone here, this is not me alone, is family and friends.
Yes.
That's the real rich. That's where riches lie, in your family and friends.
Definitely.
And what I've got, we have no kids of our own, actually, which probably explains a lot. It's just the way things happened. But we live with this, and in fact, it created space in our life for a lot of other people to come into it. And we've seen the way in which they have most wonderful lives. And I give you one example, if I may, just recent example. With COVID, I played bridge online, right? Because the only one has to pass the time of day. And I play with a very nice guy who's over 90 years of age. Now, this guy lives in Northumberland, in the heart of Northumberland, and I've only once been out to his house. He actually was an engineer in his younger days, and he was very successful. I mean, his company was into concrete manufacturing machinery, believe it or not, which got the Royal Charter, believe it or not. Anyway, this guy I play bridge with, and he's got children and grandchildren, and he's, which is lovely. And he's got a swimming pool in his house. He's also got a railway line for his grandkids with a three-rogue line. Now I just discovered that his wife, I don't know as well, but she's just got an award. For 30 years, she's been working for Riding for the Disabled. And she's just got the award for the best persons in that community nationally. And there is and he said to me only a few weeks ago, he said, well, I tell my kids, give to people, that's what you want to do. And what you realize in life is that the happiness doesn't come from what you receive. Very often it comes from giving to other people. And that's one of the other things that I've discovered, and that's what I want to commend to a lot of young people who may be struggling today. Well, it's a struggle and you've got to make ends meet and all the rest of it. But there's the other side as well. I call it the satisfaction side. You don't need to be thanked for it. You just need to have it. As you come on this planet once, you're here, and then you're gone. And at least it's nice to feel that you're doing something useful while you're here. And I say what's been helpful to me has been the opportunities that I've had. I've had a lot of luck along the way. I have no idea how much luck I've had to lead the life that I lead. The number of times I've said yes to life, and that's the other thing that I commend to people. If you get opportunities, to say yes to them, and not, you've got to say yes to life these days because it's so intimidating otherwise. So that's where I come from. And that's, if you're asking me, so going back to where this thing started, was what made me a writer. I think you're probably beginning to get the gist of it.
I do.
Yes.
Yes, I do. Wow, what a story. And you know what? It's like, okay, so as you're talking and you're explaining all the things that, you're passionate about now, it kind of like, I'm not saying that we're the same, but it kind of mirrors the people that I'm growing up with as, like a middle-aged person, where I'm looking at myself going, wow, all the things that he's saying is like the stuff that I really want to be passionate about right now. I mean, if you're passionate about something now, should you be kind of hesitant to write a book now?
Well, what I'm saying is, I don't know, you know how old I am?
No.
Well, I'm 89 years of age.
Well, you look amazing for 89 years of age. Where are you 89?
Say-
Where are you 80? I don't see 89.
Well, there you are. I was born in 1933, so I can't do anything about
Wow.
it. And there
Well,
it is.
you look amazing.
And I've had, well, thank you very much. Just tell the doctors that I am. But anyway, well, I've got to say this, that I am indebted, and I make no bones about this. I'm hugely indebted to the medical profession. I'm not indebted to the legal profession anything like as much as I'm indebted to the medical profession and the National Health Service in the UK. The National Health Service has kept me going on a number of occasions. I won't go into details, but if it wasn't for them, I would not be here, and I wouldn't be as well as I look. I'm sure of that. So give credit where credit is definitely due.
Definitely. Well, you look amazing and you have so much more to give. So keep giving. I mean,
Well,
literally. And your wife, what does she say? How handsome are
my
you
wife
that you're
can't
with?
quite, my
She
wife can't
thinks you're
quite believe
handsome?
what's going on. I mean, she is a great part of the team, if you like. I mean, she, in fact, how can I do justice to this? I mean, she worked in the Citizens Advice Bureau in Sunderland. Now, there are a lot of claims that are made in tribunals these days, and they're made according to regulations, social welfare benefit claims and disability claims. And the fact is that people say, oh, you don't need lawyers to handle this, but of course you do, because in fact, you need a law to understand the law. You need lawyers to understand the law. Anyway, my wife got a degree, a general degree, before I met her. And included in that general degree was psychology. Now, that was totally missing from mine, which was a huge miss when you think about it, because I used to think the world was a rational place until I met my wife.
No.
Well, in fact, she explained to me the subconscious mind a bit, and that was very helpful to me. And so things have come my way. So but she, in fact, worked at the Citizen Advice Bureau as a volunteer. And she got literally £1 million for her clients in back payments by fighting their cause. And that was her pleasure and satisfaction. Now, today, for example, during COVID, where we've been sort of locked up a bit and we're getting older and we can't move around as we used to, she set up an art appreciation group. And we've, in our lifetime, I mean, the leisure side, it's not been relevant to anything we've talked about today, but the leisure side of activities, the cultural side of activities has been large, and we've shared this together. We're blessed in the northeast of England. We've got the most wonderful orchestra, the Northern Symphony Orchestra, that plays in the Sage, which is a concert hall just down the road from here, 20 minutes drive from here. And that is the concert hall was designed by Norman Foster, top architect in the UK. Now, you see, when I was, which I had said to you earlier on, that nothing turned out as planned. Well, when I was young, I wanted to move as far away from the Northeast as I could. And I'm
Yeah.
so pleased that I failed. I'm delighted, because today I got to London last week. I wanted, as soon as I get out of it, the better, because I can't move around like I used to be able to. And I went to see the Raphael exhibition there, which was great. But I was glad to get, to get home. So this is the way life is. But at least I've been very lucky, and I count my blessings with the luck that I've had, the family and the friends, and especially Rose, my wife, because we really overlap enormously in the things that we do. This, all my doing now is a bit really overmuch for her, which I worry about it, because I really do worry, because I don't want to spoil what is actually a very lovely relationship for the amount of time we've got left on this earth, which is now more limited than it was 20 years ago. But anyway, that's my problem.
I hear you, but I mean, you've done so much, and thank you so much for doing what you do. So, you have a book there. I saw it down there somewhere. It's your book. Show me your book.
This is the book. I don't know whether you've
Death
got
of
it.
a Nightingale.
As I say, it's a play in a book.
Okay.
And it's actually, anybody interested in special education, it's also a case study of how, in my view, inclusion went off the rails, how it went wrong, because there's a lot of detail in the back of it. And there's another side, which is not. Have we got time to talk about another side of it?
Oh, we're gonna have to come back for that. You're gonna have to come back on the show for that.
Well, I've got the spiritual side of life. We never talked about the spiritual side of life.
We're gonna have to do that. We're definitely gonna have to do that. Definitely gonna have to do that. So, okay, so Alan, yeah, definitely. Alan, let me tell you something. You have a plethora of information that people need to hear. And The Death of a Nightingale, you guys have to go and check that out for yourself if you are interested, or if you are in the special needs programs here in the United States and overseas. It's something to look at. It's something definitely to look into, because I'm telling you, we need to know how to, how would I say, facilitate different people. And like Alan said, we're not all the same. We're human beings, but everyone has a different need. And this book is going to specifically go into what those needs are, and how we, as just regular people, can probably lift our voices and make this be heard, because we definitely need to do that.
That's exactly it.
See?
Thank you
I
very
knew
much
it.
for saying that.
Yes.
Very much indeed.
Where can people go to find your book?
Well, it's on Amazon, obviously. That's the best place. The trouble is that there are other books called Death of a Nightingale. So if you go in for Death of a Nightingale with I Spy, the I Spy bit is the extra blog that I've been running alongside it. And I put the detail in as well. So it's Death of a Nightingale with I Spy, edited by Jan Wolfe. And that's what it is.
Awesome. Well, we're going to go ahead and have that in the description box below, and also on the screen. So if you're watching on the screen, it's going to be right there. And I want to thank Alan. Alan, you're coming back, right? Hello.
I'd be delighted to.
You got to come back, because we have some more to talk about. I mean, the special thing.
The subplot in the play. There's a subplot we never touched.
We got I like subplots. So we have to get Alan back on the show. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, and go to that website and check it out. Special needs, man. We all need something different. And I think that if we are understanding of the other person's needs, we can facilitate and help those needs. And we can also be more aware of our own. I want to thank you guys so much. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Don't forget to dare to be different. And until next time, guys, bye.
I dare to be different. I dare to be different. I dare. I dare. I dare to be different. I dare to be different.